Now you go into an area and you forcefully, not by accident. I mean, we can all take some randomness in our lives. If I'm driving down the road or a deer walks out on the road, I don't have to drive into the ditch. I don't have to hit the deer. There's other things I can do. I can take little bits of uncertainty. But what happens when we have institutions that for 100 years enforce particular policies that target that sense-making, that community building, that knowledge creation, the language, or even any one of those? What happens if you have this long, sustained attack on any one part of the people? Even if there's a tsunami, it's terrible. I get it. That's not good for anyone. Natural disaster. We can cope with that. It may not be easy, but it makes sense. There was a school shooting in New Haven, or was it New Haven?
Connecticut.
Somewhere in Connecticut. It's just outside of New Haven. Why are there shootings in schools? Why do we shrug our shoulders? Because that's not a random natural disaster. It's somewhat intentional. And the last year, I think about 6 school shootings in the States. What is so disturbing to us about that is these are intentional acts. They aren't natural disasters. They're not things that were beyond our control. Someone had to make the decision. The guy from the Batman movie premiere who killed all of those people, he made the conscious decision, and not just the spur of the moment. He planned. He had a plan. He was very efficient. If he was in the military, we would say that guy's a genius. But he just did this thing that was random and appalling. And most disturbing, it was intentional. It wasn't an accident. I understand that there are accidents. Shit happens. That's where that term came from. But when things are intentional, it's different. So, because of culture's role as an organizational force, destabilization offers tangible danger to the group's cohesion, its ability, its capability, or its capacity to adapt. Especially if it's a random thing. If it's really bad, if you look at what happened, look at Japan during the tsunami, they had a problem with one of the nuclear power plants. That severely limited their ability to do certain things. It impacted their agriculture, it impacted their energy sector. But at the end of the day, you work on it, you try to problem solve, you come up with some solutions. There was also another tsunami warning like 2 weeks ago, and it ended up not being a big threat, which was really good. When things are disastrous, kind of by accident, we lose in a sense that our schematics or the plans, especially if it's something we can't predict for. But now think about intentional destabilization. This isn't just something that's bewildering us. It's not just something that's difficult. Intentional cultural disorder subverts established morality. Those systems we have for determining what's appropriate for us and what's right for us and what's comfortable and what's a violation. It subverts those things because someone is intentionally undoing all of those things we did since the beginning of time. It confounds cultural heuristics. If you don't let us speak our language, and you put us in a school where we can't speak our language, and you keep us from speaking with our parents and transferring those things down, I'm going to lose a huge part of my problem-solving skills. I'm going to lose a huge part of who I am, and I may not recover. And now imagine it happens to an entire group, everyone who speaks that language. You lose the ability to even maintain that body across those people. There's something that's different when it's intentional. Our culture gives us these ideas that are clear mandates for action. When there's a problem, there's certain things we do. And I know we do them because that's what our parents did. and our systems and our beliefs tell us there's certain things to do. But when somebody intentionally destabilizes you for decades, that's all called into question. Not only have you made it difficult for me right now, but you've taken away my schematics, you've taken away my heuristics, you've taken away my problem-solving tools. And in some cases, you could make the argument that missionary educators thought they were really doing us a service by giving us a different set, but they now know you cannot go into a community and reprogram people like computers. It does not work. Our language evolved where it did, and differences in communities evolved because the landscape is different, the environment is different. Everything that's there is different. The weather is different. There's different fish here than there are in this community over here. Some of our communities had access to bison. Some of them didn't. Some of them had rivers that were easily navigatable by sturgeon-nose canoe, and others didn't. So now you take everyone away, you tell them, you intentionally destabilize them, you take all that away, and you try and give them a new common, a religion or a language or whatever you want to call it. And that language isn't, you can't directly plug it in to different communities. You can't make any one person just flip a switch and pick up these things. You get all these conflicts. You get all these things that happen. Missionary schools, residential schools, boarding schools, whatever you want to call them, they were sustained, intentional destabilization processes designed to separate Indian people from their sense of identity, their sense-making systems, their knowledge creation systems, and their community building systems. Those four main components of that cultural cognitive ecosystem that I talked about that links every people to their existence. When you intentionally destabilize them for 80 years, it's not going to go well. We just came out of a period, we just came out of a century where we did that to people purposefully and intentionally to sever those ties. That intergenerational transfer is gone, so you cannot transfer language between generations. The specificity is gone, so those registers that we talked about, language registers, start to go away. The specialization that makes us who we are, that makes us as complex as the problems we have to solve, go away. When I set everything out in here today, I said, let's just let everybody get together, sit where they want to sit, and see how the seating works out. We'll put some things in front of them. How many times have you went and looked at someone's cultural information and they said, oh, don't touch it, or don't write on it. Don't wreck that. That's Grandpa's good book, or whatever. I did just the opposite. I wanted to see who picked up their pens and their highlighters. I wanted to know who would read the New Year's article. I wanted to know who would say, and it's completely unpredictable. I could have even sat here and used agent-based modeling software and tried to figure out how many would have thought about it. But the people that were most interested, I would have not guessed that it were them. The people that sat and studied it over their meal, I probably would have not guessed it was those people. So, even though there's this complete random chaos, and chaos causes us to react in certain complex ways, there are certain stabilizing rules because there is a group culture. We know some things about us. We know there are some things that are important. We've got to the point in the discussion where we've talked about what's been destabilized and some of the bad things that come from that. And we're going to take a quick break, and we're going to come back and we're going to talk about how to try and change that inertia, that trajectory, how to move it into a different direction. Keep in mind my whole thing about fifth graders. Think about over our break, a class of 30 students. Half of them are fifth graders, half of them are sixth graders. Boys, girls, good kids, bad kids. The only differentiating factor is some of them are a year older than others.